Warning, this video contains spoilers, blood, gore, and intense violence. Hey guys, and welcome to another game review. Today's game that I will be reviewing is Doom. Doom was released in 2016 and its platforms have been the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. I also want to note that all of the gameplay clips in this video were recorded by me during my playthrough for this review. So without further ado, let's get into the review. So the first thing I want to talk about is story, and to be honest, this game had a lack of story, and the story that it did have wasn't that strong. But in most cases, that would be a bad thing, but for this game, that's actually a good thing. And the reason for that is, in this game you will play as the main character, Doom Slayer, who's an unstoppable force of pure rage that's only purpose is to kill demons, to kill all of the demons. So he really doesn't care about all the stuff happening with Dr. Samuel Hayden, or with Olivia, or really any of the story. He really doesn't care. He couldn't care less. Because his sole purpose is to destroy all of the demons. Even if that were to mean, destroying the world, he doesn't care. So, as I said, in most cases the lack of story would be a bad thing. But for this game, the lack of story, is actually a really, really good thing. And I wouldn't want this game to have, honestly, any more story. The only bits of story that you really pick up on are basically Samuel Hayden is the head of the AUC, which basically went out of control and opened a portal to hell, which released demons everywhere, and the demons took over Mars, pretty much killed everyone, except for Olivia, because, well, Olivia Pierce is kind of the one that freed all of the demons. She opened the portal. Samuel Hayden supposedly wants to shut down the portals, and is supposedly, helping you. But you do find out at the end of the game, he actually betrays you and isn't a good idea. No real surprise there. But anyways, that's basically all of the story to this game. So I'm going to have to give this game for story a score of 10 out of 10. That is a perfect score. And honestly, I just really liked the lack of story in this game. Next up is graphics, and this game honestly looked amazing. First thing I want to look at with the graphics is the scenery. The scenery in this game was just so cool looking, especially when you finally get to go through the portal and go to hell. I mean, just like every skull, every blood stain, every door, every spike, everything just was like so perfectly placed to make the place look just perfect. And the other thing about the graphics that was perfect was the demon design. Those guys looked so cool. I mean, the imps looked pretty good. The Revants were probably one of the best looking things detail-wise. I mean, if you just look at their face, there's so much, expression in their skull face. I don't even know how they did that. The Coco Demons, the Flying Guys, those guys were pretty cool looking. The Summoners looked really, really cool. I thought the Summoners looked awesome. And then, talking about creatures, the bosses. The bosses in this game were so epic looking and extremely memorable. I'd have to say probably the most memorable of the bosses, and when I think of the bosses from this game, it's kind of the first one that comes to mind. Actually, when I think of bosses from Doom in general, the entire franchise, the first one that comes to mind is the Cyber Demon. And of all the versions of the Cyber Demon across all of the Doom games, because he's been in a lot of them, this had to be the best one, with his gnarly teeth and his, big cannon arm. And just everything about that thing looked perfectly horrible. And so scary and great. And then the final boss of the game, the Spider Mastermind, that thing had so much detail. And they even added the detail of as you damage it, it actually starts moving differently and looking differently, and it like at the end of that fight, that thing really does look like it is about to die. It looked so great. And just honestly, this game looked amazing. And I am going to have to give this game, for graphics, a 10 out of 10. That is another perfect score for Doom. Alright, so the third thing I want to talk about is gameplay. And when I'm doing my reviews, gameplay is the main thing that I take into account when I'm coming up with my final scores. And this game was just so fast-paced and epic and just a thrill to play, honestly. It was so much fun. I mean, those battles, those big epic battles where it's like 1 to 1,000,000 demons, I mean, that's just so cool, so fun. The huge selection of weapons, and each weapon has its own very unique abilities. I thought that was great. Also, this is the first Doom to have double jumping. And I know that's a small thing, but I really like that. I like double jumping. And the bosses, too. The bosses, mechanically, were quite amazing, honestly. Like, and too, the way that they were all different, you know, mechanically. Like the first boss, the Cyber Demon, you've got to move fast to dodge his attacks and basically just relentlessly shoot at him non-stop. Whereas the second boss in the game, the Hell Guards, those guys, you've got to kind of bide your time, wait for their shields to go down, and then do high-powered, precise shots at them. For me, it was the super shotgun, but you could also use that one laser cannon, or BFG would also work very well in that fight. But I just thought that was really cool. And then the final boss kind of was a combination of everything, where you had to, you know, kind of be a little slow and methodical. You had to do a little bit of kind of platforming, jumping up on pillars, dodging their electricity, and, you know, just that final boss was really good. And also, this game had some half-decent platforming portions. I will say that for being a first-person shooter. First-person shooters don't usually have much platforming, but this game actually did a very good job at platforming. Especially the one point where you gotta climb, like, this reactor thing. And you have to, like, jump and dodge things, and just that was actually really, really well done. Something else, too, is there's a bunch of extra stuff you can do. You can go and find, you know, like, collectibles. There's little figurines you can collect. There's armor upgrade things that you can collect, and just a bunch of collectibles. Also, a bunch of really cool little, like, Easter eggs. The ones that I found in my playthrough for this review were there's this smiling skull with a hat that says Doom on the side. There's also on the one computer this, like, OG Doom minigame that was kind of fun. There's also this one place towards the end of the game where you have to find this really, really, really well hidden lever. When you pull the lever, it opens a door into a room that literally looks like the original Doom. I just thought that was really awesome. And just everything gameplay-wise about this game was really, really good. And it also was one of the few games I've ever played that really did push you to have to learn basically how to play the game as best you could. You know, when to use certain weapons, what weapons to use on certain demons. And you really did have to learn, you know, how the demons, you know, act and what they do to win this game, which I thought was really good. All in all, I thought the gameplay for this game was really good, and I'm going to have to give this game a score of 10 out of 10 for gameplay. That is 3 perfect scores in a row. So now there's just 2 more things I want to talk about before I give you all the final score for this game. And the first of those 2 things is difficulty. So when I'm rating difficulty on games, I always rate that based on playing on the standard difficulty level, which is what I did for this playthrough. I played this on Hurt Me Plenty, but there is one difficulty below that and a bunch of difficulties above that. I've never played the hardest difficulty, Ultra Nightmare. I can only imagine how horribly difficult that would be. But, you know, rating this on the standard difficulty, I thought the game was quite tricky. I wouldn't say it was like super, super, super hard. It wasn't one of the hardest games I've ever played. But there were some moments when those, you know, fast-paced battles could really, really push you to your speed limit. So I'm going to have to give this game a 7 out of 10 for difficulty. I'd have to say it was kind of your average game sort of difficulty. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is length. And I've seen a lot of things, when I was researching the game, said average playthrough times for doing like bare minimum were like 14 to 18 hours. I was kind of surprised to see that because it did not take me that long. On my playthrough, I did mostly bare minimum what you had to do to beat the game, but I also took my time, you know, looking around trying to find, you know, Easter eggs and secrets and stuff like that. This game took me a total of 7 hours to beat. So it was fairly short, but I will say this, there is a lot of other stuff for me to do in that game. I mean, I can try to find all the secrets, I can find all the extra stuff. I could also try beating the game on higher difficulties, which I kind of do plan on doing a playthrough at some point. At least trying the next difficulty up. That'll be pretty fun. So yeah, this game only took me 7 hours to beat. So it was a fairly short game. Now it is the moment you have all been waiting for. It is time to give this game its final score. And this game's final score is 10 out of 10. That is a perfect score, and that is the first game on this channel I have given a perfect score. I do not give those out lightly. When I give those out, that means that I literally cannot find anything wrong with the game. I would have to definitely say that this game was perfect, and I would definitely recommend, if you haven't played this game, go play it. It is super fun, and if you have played it, go play it again, because it's fun. You know, it is a real, true, honest hoot to play. So thanks for watching, and make sure to sub, like, and comment below.